itself.
It's hey, sometimes I do my own stuff. I'm just like, God, could someone else edit this, please? And it's like, oh, the irony.
Yeah, so there's often in these podcasts someone saying something like, Matt, you're going to edit that. No, no, I'm not. I mean, Mark, I did edit your Home Depot. When people ask, I'll edit. I had
Thanks.
Mike
Um,
Richard said something he
I
didn't like.
got,
Mark,
yeah, I got something else. I don't know if you actually want to edit this or if I should just correct whenever we record the third episode, but I keep talking about Alien Attack, which is just an edit of the first two episodes into a TV movie.
I felt like you said it that way when
I
you
said
did
a
it.
lot of things. I don't know if I said it, but
I don't know if it's because I already knew that or to me it sounded like you said it that
I
way.
said
So
a bunch of things about it. I talked about it more than I should have, so I
okay.
don't know. I can
Anyway,
always, since those aren't up, I can't listen to them, so I don't know how dumb it is. But if
okay.
you want to listen to those trivia sections and tell me, or edit it, or tell me what should I apologize for, and be like, hey, I'm an idiot, and this I didn't read hard enough,
Dude,
because like,
I get
why would it be
weekly.
called Alien Attack, right? It has nothing
Yeah.
to do with the plot of those first two episodes.
Yeah, true. I get weekly emails now about things I got wrong on the Twilight Zone one. So, you know.
It's
Oh,
nice to be wanted.
trust me, it never ends because, once it's on the internet, it's there forever. And
Mhm.
then 5 years later, someone's like, oh, hey, you got that wrong. And it's like, I don't even remember saying that in the first place. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of
we've
fun. But
done enough. We've done enough that we know we're gonna tell the same stories a bunch of times.
yeah, at least someone's listening when they complain, right?
Well, I just listened to a 6-part series on Vince McMahon, and like someone on that told the same story in two different parts of that series.
Right.
Like
That's you just
that is
gotta
incredible.
you gotta have a five timers award. When the story comes up for a fifth time, you give them a plaque or something.
But like, imagine if I just told the same story within one episode.
I think you have, but
Damn it.
I guess we should get started with this episode then.
Okie dokes.
Earl, just to give you the quick download. We're still this is the third one we've recorded, so we're still like slightly working it out, but it's a little mission log esque where we're do our introduction. Mark will do trivia. I've got a synopsis. We'll just go general observations out the wazoo. And at the end, I'm trying. The question for this I've been making so far is like how much of the episode is sci-fi fun and how much of it is existential dread, because I feel like that's kind of the main signifier of season one of Space 1999. We'll probably have to change the question when we get to season two, but
Mhm.
Then it's sci-fi disco. Now, if you want existential dread, there was a show before Space 1999. The BBC did it called Moonbase 3. And it's 6 episodes of these people talking about, oh, I'm going to end it all, and I'm like, yeah, I'm hip, I'm watching y'all.
Hmm.
maybe we'll do that as a chaser for this one then, or if we feel like two's getting too durfy for us, we can
Just switch it to that.
well, when finish with two, got to finish what you're doing, but
It'd be really funny if we are just like, actually, no.
it's kind of like how with the prisoner we're like, should we do the remake, and we finished and we were like, no.
Both of us sort of just scanned through YouTube of the first episode of that, and it looked bad. So we're
That's
just
another, like, people started clamoring for it, we do it, but no one's clamored, so yeah.
5 years from now, they'll clamor for it.
Hmm.
Maybe.
I
I don't
remember
know.
watching the remake in real time, and it was just like, why did you call this The Prisoner? Call it something else, make it easier on yourself.
It was like when Lost came out and everybody was trying to do the thing that Lost did, I guess, which was sort of a knockoff of a thing that The Prisoner did way before that.
Yeah, but
So it
now
made
we're stuck
sense.
with the flashback thing from Lost, like
I don't
forever, and I kind of resent that.
I don't really like Lost. There was an article that came out about how racist everyone who made Lost, and I was just
Yeah,
sort
I've
of
read
like
that.
reading it like this is horrified, and also kind of like I was right. I knew this was racist, which is not true, but I just didn't really like it that much. Um but yeah. That was I felt, well, I don't know. I didn't actually feel vindicated. It was just like, well, that's interesting. Terrible.
Mark, do you wanna intro this one?
Sure. Okay. Welcome to Podcast 1999, the podcast about Space 1999, recorded in the year 2023.
And probably
I'm
from
your host.
2024.
Wait, no one's hearing this in 2024.
Someone's still listening.
No, we're erasing the tapes just like BBC.
Okay.
We're erasing the tapes. Yeah, someone's probably listening to this in 2073 and I'm dead. So, enjoy that. I'm your host, Mark Malik.
Hi, I'm Matt Comages. We have a guest today. One of the weird conceits of this podcast is that, I've watched a lot of this before, but I'm not like an expert on it. I just drug Mark into it because he likes this kind of thing.
I'm pretty much watching it the first time.
Yeah.
We'll just call it that.
So our guests tend to be very well informed on this show. Today is from Mission Log, the guy that keeps techs all the tech for the Mission Log podcast, various Mission Log podcasts. It's Earl Green. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
And yeah, I know you're a sci-fi guy. So, well, you did the Sci-Fi 5, didn't you? Another one that people should listen
to. We touched on Space 1999 a couple of times, not as many times as I would have liked, because there was so much weirdness behind the scenes, such as its origins as season 2 of Jerry Anderson's UFO that never got made.
Yeah, that one dissolving marriage. Landau and Bain made it to the 90s, didn't they? But yeah, this is where the Anderson team up sort of splits apart. So season 2 has no Sylvia anymore, I suppose, but she's still around for this, I guess.
They basically broke up at the wrap party for season 1.
Okay, so she was properly on this one. Okay.
Awkward.
Yeah, that's what happens, right? It's like marriages have trouble surviving things like Christmas and birthdays and seasons of TV shows.
See, we just don't really celebrate birthdays and Christmas at my house much.
It's probably a good call, actually.
Yeah. Just go out to dinner. That's about it, So
I'm in my 40s and I don't want to think about it anymore. And I have friends who are slightly younger than me who are still doing it. And I'm just like, okay, fine.
Yeah. Today's episode is Earthbound. We're talking about, this is, I think, number 5 on my disc set, which is production order, I believe, which is what we're going by. Well, what am I doing? You do trivia, so I guess you're gonna knock this all out.
I'll knock something out. Here's some trivia. This is the 5th episode produced for the series, and the 2nd of 14 directed by Charles Crichton, or Crichton, however you'd like to pronounce it. It was written by the Andersons along with Anthony Terpeloff. He was an American writer who wrote for both American and British TV, including episodes of Judge for the Defense and The Alfred Hitchcock Hour. He died in the UK in 1978. But before that, he'll be back to write 3 more episodes in season 1 and 1 in season 2. We have Roy Dotrice back for his 2nd and final appearance on the show as Commander Simmons. You may remember him from the pilot Breakaway. He was a British actor with a long and storied career. You can catch him in Cheech and Chong's The Corsican Brothers. He played Mozart's dad in Amadeus. He was in both Tales from the Crypt and Tales from the Dark Side, Earth 2 and Babylon 5, and his final role was as the character of Hallyne in Game of Thrones before he passed away in 2017. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I don't know how to pronounce things. The bigger get for this episode is obviously Christopher Lee, aka Sir Christopher Frank Carandini Lee as Xantor. For 70 years, he dominated cinema and television with his imposing presence after serving in the Royal Military in World War II and almost certainly killing people in the process. He played Rasputin, Dracula, Scaramanga, Count Dooku, and Saruman. He starred in films like Theater of Death, The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism, Curse 3, Blood Sacrifice, Psycho Circus, The Skull, and Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. But most importantly, he played Lord Summerisle in one of my favorite movies, 1973's The Wicker Man, the real one, not the one with the bees. Lee was not impressed by the script, but he agreed to do the episode because his 12-year-old daughter was a fan of Jerry Anderson's previous marionette shows. Anderson asked Lee to ring Peter Cushing to ask him if he would do an episode of the series, and Cushing agreed. So look forward to that too.
You left out the most important trivia on Lee.
I said he killed a guy.
No, is the metal albums he recorded when he was 90.
He did that.
That was awesome.
I don't know if that was as
have
awesome
that
as
somewhere.
listing out all those movies that had cool titles, but yes, it was awesome. He started with a single that was Christmas songs, and then did a full record after that. It was very heavy.
I'm waiting for you to say trivia over. I need
Trivia over.
Okay. Synopsis start.
Hmm.
Except I gotta stretch my screen or I'll miss half of my synopsis there. Here we go. Commissioner Gerald Simmons of the World Space Commission remains on Moonbase Alpha, having been visited when the moon blasted out of orbit. Without an actual purpose, he's feeling like a 312th wheel and believes Commander Koenig can get them back to Earth if he'd only command harder. Meanwhile, a strange blue spacecraft comes into range and lands on the moon's surface. Koenig and Dr. Russell lead a mission to explore the craft. They find 6 psychedelic space gypsies in suspended animation and accidentally incinerate one of them before the alien computer simply revives the other 5. It's an awkward moment, but fortunately, Xantor, the leader and captain of the alien expedition, lets bygones be bygones. They are Caldorians, refugees of their dying homeworld and hoping to establish themselves on Earth. The moon was meant to be a way station before their final descent, but with the moon now out in deep space, that plan did not really work out. But those Caldorians are chill. They can re-enter suspended animation and make it to Earth in a quick 75 years. And hey, they now have a spare seat for a human. Dr. Russell checks out the tech. It's not quite compatible with humans, but if the system matrix maps a specific person, it should work. Commissioner Simmons pulls weight as he is absolutely set on going, but Commander Koenig prefers that the computer decides who will go. Simmons is unwilling to wait, however. He'd prefer that they kneecap the Caldonians and send 6 humans, but if it's got to be one, he's determined to be that one. He removes the station's power cell, effectively holding everyone hostage. Koenig and Xantor decide to give in to his demands, and Simmons takes Xantor as a literal hostage in order to safely make it to the Caldonian ship. The ship takes off, and its complement enters suspended animation. Simmons last. Simmons awakens and excitedly opens up comms with Earth. But it's only 2 hours later, not 75 years, and Moonbase Alpha is surprised to hear back from him so soon. It turns out that in his rush to be the guy, he never had his personal matrix mapped by the computer, and he will spend the rest of his now short life trapped in a plexiglass coffin. He's already out of Moonbase Alpha's range for recovery. Oh, and the computer did finally make its choice for the trip. That would have been Commissioner Simmons. All right. That was a bit of a mouthful, I guess.
Pretty funny that he was in Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, and the ending of this basically is a Tales from the Crypt ending. Or Tales from the Dark Side is a horror anthology ending.
Yeah, because it's like, it is a kind of a Twilight Zone ending, but yeah, it has that special like 80s disdain added to it, I think.
It was so weirdly, I don't know, Koenig was being so weirdly nice. He was like, come back here so we can do the lottery. Even after he's like shooting people and taking hostages, he's like, no, come back here, and if you win the lottery, you can still go. It's like, if I was captain of that ship, I'd be like, kill him
Airlock.
Yeah, out the airlock. Xantor, make his head explode. Xantor can do that.
Earl, when people request episodes or movies, I always have to ask them, why did you request the specific one? So what's the special sauce in this one for you?
This one actually it's one of my favorites, but it's not my like absolute top favorite. But I do a retro TV podcast that also bumps into Space 1999 from time to time. And I had actually done my number one pick some time back. And so I thought, okay, let's do something else. But also, I had recently listened to the Big Finish Productions audio adaptation of this episode. And so I kind of wanted to go back and rewatch this and compare and contrast, because they changed a lot about it, even though it kind of still has the same basic contour. The story more or less follows the same lines, but ends up in a place that you weren't quite expecting if you were thinking they were going to carbon copy the TV episode. And, as far as Simmons goes, you have to love the cosmic comeuppance here. It's epic.
Yeah, I was literally getting angry because it seemed like he was going to get away with it. And then it was like, oh no. He got come upped so good in this. This is classic. But also that speaks to how good Dotrice was at playing him. It's almost like I kind of wish he was on the show more than 2 episodes, but well,
He would have been the Baltar, the Dr. Smith.
This is one of those where if the show had run longer, he probably would have shown back up, been like, I've transcended human form and I'm still a jerk.
Was that last episode?
Well, the interesting thing is you say this is the 5th one produced. Yeah, I remember it was produced fairly early on, but in air order, at least in the UK, it was something like 14 episodes out from the pilot.
Yeah, we haven't gone super deep into the airing order versus, we're sort of doing this based on Matt's DVDs. Is that right, Matt?
That's correct. The 17 DVD mega set.
Okay, this does show up on YouTube as like episode something 14, 12, something like that. But
yeah, it's just like who remembered Simmons was even there after a dozen shows had passed. He really did need to be in it more.
Yeah, I guess he was busy.
The way Mark and I are watching it, it kind of works out. Because just to confuse the audience more, this is the 3rd episode we're recording just because of schedules, logistics, blah blah blah. But having a 1 episode absence of him and then him showing up in the 3rd one we are watching, I think it works pretty well. Like, I mean, it's that's not a real order to watch it in, but it works.
5th is still acceptable, but yeah, like 12th or 14th would be kind of crazy.
Yeah, because when he first shows up, staring out the window, looking bored with the staff meeting, it's like, oh, are you still here?
Well, the way this show, the tone of it makes it a little bit difficult to like feel out the characters, because Star Trek, various Star Trek series always do a pretty good job of like highlighting characters' personalities. That's the board. Like I don't know, I haven't really seen Enterprise, but for the ones I have seen, they do a pretty good job with that. And this is much more of a like workplace. People show up and give necessary information, and sort of a lot of the personality of this series is in like the look of it, and the I don't know, and the fact that this is obviously, every time I am thinking about it, this is obvious that this is a live action show made by people who've only made puppet series, because it kind of is like that, because the ship just comes in on a string and it's like, cool, that's totally fine.
They'd gotten rid of the fishnet uniforms by this point that you see on UFO, so at least we got that.
Pretty good choice. But it's like, it is kind of the way, like, we're not the I don't know how to say it, like the acting isn't necessarily intended to carry a lot of the show, even though these are good actors. But it's like this, they're not like put front and center, except for Simmons in the glass cage at the end.
What I see in season 1, and I think the big charm of it for me is, again, Star Trek at its best is going to get into action, adventure, and making rash decisions, even when you have Vulcans around. Whereas Space 1999 just doubled down and like lives out on the, okay, we are going to do scientific process. We're going to be logical. We're not going to panic, which is what we see here. The guy that gets illogical and panics is the guy that suffers a horrible fate.
Yeah, even well, there are a couple of impulse control issues here, sort of like in the previous episodes we watched that remind me of Prometheus, where they're just like, okay, well, he's dead, so open the case. And then the guy just vaporizes. And I was like, maybe, not the best decision, even though Xantor is obviously super cool and just totally understands. But yeah, it definitely seems like that itself is like, yeah, don't breach scientific method, because then you're gonna end up with a ash pile.
Who knew that randomly drilling into the alien apparatus, unknown function, might cause it to critically malfunction? Who had any idea? There should have been a warning sticker.
No
Do
one
not
was wearing
put any
helmets.
part of the ship in your mouth.
Nobody's wearing helmets. And then the gas comes out, and I was like, oh boy, you guys are dead. And then it didn't happen. But I appreciate that kind of thing. Like, they've definitely been punished for not doing science correctly. This show.
Well, that guy in the case was punished for them not doing science correctly, but they're still doing
Well,
it professionally. It's not like someone's like, "We have to do this now. Do it. We got to find out." They're just calmly doing it, right? So,
I mean, they're literally going to Earth, and if Earth doesn't want them, they're going to kill themselves.
oh, the Caledonians, right? Okay.
Yeah. So
Did
I
I
mean,
say their name right?
I don't know. I didn't actually put that in my notes. My bad.
Yes, that's right. So I was just thinking of New Caledonia. I'm like, am I getting that right? Okay.
Caledonians.
Yeah, because that's with the K in this episode, whereas the country is with the C. But yeah, that made me second guess myself when I said it. Did you guys and Earl, maybe you've seen this one a few times, but I guess it's especially for Mark. Just were you expecting the tables to turn and for the Caledonians to be like energy vampires in great part because Christopher Lee's their leader?
I thought it was possible, but specifically Simmons says not to trust them, and we're obviously meant not to trust Simmons, which that was definitely not supposed to trust him. So that was actually kind of a nice if they'd have also been distrustworthy, or Simmons, I didn't want Simmons to be right about them. So
And
no,
yeah,
I didn't really think they were gonna be. I thought there was a possibility that Xantor was gonna try to take Dr. Russell, which I knew wasn't gonna work. It's like, I also came into this knowing which actor is not going to be on the series again. So
yeah, there is that.
This is the problem with our modern eye, which is that we can see all the information kind of, even if we don't look at spoilers, we can see information like that. We know Dr. Russell's back. We know that Simmons is not. So
I do want to just well, first, Earl, I know you've seen this one a few times, but did you ever have that thought that things are going to get real sinister with the aliens, or is that not the tone of the show?
It's it's off. It is often the tone of the show, because if you've watched, okay, you say this is the third one you've recorded, so you're going in a different order, but you get stuff like Alpha Child. It's like, okay, whoever the guest star is, they're sinister. Whichever one Lovejoy shows up in, okay, he's something's wrong with him. And they've cast Christopher Lee, and so there is kind of that expectation, but he underplays the whole episode to such a degree for what you expect from Christopher Lee. Although Christopher Lee doesn't really have to chew a lot of scenery. He just has to sit there and sound sepulchral, and that's going to be sinister enough. But he's just very calm. He's cool with it. Oops, you killed, one of his crew. Oops. Well, we know you didn't mean to do that. This stuff happens.
I think, evolved races out in the cosmos would understand that if you have a group of people going into suspended animation, one of them is not coming out.
this, yeah, I think we've gone over this on other shows even.
The Rip Van Winkle caper on Twilight Zone, right? With the glass cases again.
Someone isn't going to survive the what do you call it, cryostasis, no matter what. But
The apes,
still,
space seed.
yeah, and this is, a pet peeve that I don't really I hate it when TV or film portrays some kind of advanced race as some kind of dumb idiot, Thor. But it's I think this is a sufficient portrayal of somebody who is advanced. They don't talk too much about it, which is probably good because writers can't.
Don't brag.
Well, don't brag. Also, TV writers are not like on the forefront of science, and people who are on the forefront of science get predictions wrong from like 5 years in the future. That's one thing that is constant. Is you want to laugh? Go back to 2013 and read predictions about what 10 years from now are like. I guarantee you it's hilarious. It's always going to be hilarious. Maybe someone can make an AI that does it better, but we're bad at it.
I mean, that's the whole AI thing right now, just extrapolating the future, but they're still going to get it
I'm
wrong.
saying,
There's just too many
well,
variables.
we've gotten what AI is like wrong. It's like you just humans are bad at predicting what more advanced things are like, and maybe it's something to do with us being apex predators. So it's like part of our identity as apex predators is we have to not be able to visualize things that are much more advanced than we are because then we'll collapse.
No,
I think it's something about not understanding death is part of that too. I think if people really understood the like philosophical implications of death, then they would just come to a total halt and not be able to do their hunting and gathering like they're supposed to do.
Yeah, I've been moving my way through the apes movies again, and Escape really hits home where in the boxing scene where Cornelius is just like, these guys, even when things are going well, are just beating the tar out of each other, So like the apes are like, they can't imagine you'd want to have a sport like that. Just talking about the I guess your apex predator idea there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing, is that part of why apes movies are usually good is because the writers just have this job where they have to make something that's not quite a human, but
Um,
close.
the other thing with Christopher Lee, just going back to him, we were talking a little off mic before we got into the episode about how this seems to be in a little period of his career where he went understated. As Earl, you saying this was actually filmed about the same time as The Wicker Man, even though it came out 2 years later. So
Yeah, the first season was filmed starting in 1973, and so this would have been around about the time Wicker Man came out.
So I wonder if
Nice.
he's just trying to reinvent himself a little bit at this point in time, before doubling down later in his career as one of cinema's ultimate villains, right? So
Yeah, he fought Yoda,
yeah, this
a
is just
monster.
his tiny little breakout as a benevolent, psychedelic disco alien. So
I think that reading about how he just did it because his daughter liked the Thunderbirds or whatever is pretty much, that probably says a lot. He was probably just like, okay.
oh, you mentioned earlier where the alien cases did not have anything saying "do not open." There was no sign, but the
Mhm.
Moonbase Alpha has plenty of signs that say that, and Commissioner Simmons opens all of them. I thought that was pretty funny.
The
Yeah,
flashing danger signs. I mean,
he's like, turn on that siren, turn that
the
turn that flashing red thing on.
the
Um,
aliens, on the other hand, they live in this service merchandise alien showroom of the future. Pick out your alien. We'll have them waiting for you at the front.
I said it looked like the redemption section of an arcade. It looks like where you go win all the tickets. I love the way it looked. I thought it looked amazing. Once again, I'm just continuously blown away by how cool everything looks in the show.
This is me reading in way too much, but this is the shot where they go back into the ship when Dr. Russell has put herself under.
Hmm.
And the way the door opens, just because you were talking about showroom of the future, and I put it in my notes that the door opens in a triangle, and then there's kind of a ball in the back, and it really made me think of like the 1939 World's Fair centerpiece with they had that pyramid obelisk and a giant ball, and I kind of wondered if that, because there's so much tech that the Alphans don't understand, and there just made me think of the World's Fair vibe, and almost if that was kind of like a subconscious or intentional, bit of visual vocabulary there.
I had to look it up, but it looks pretty cool.
It's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Koenig's chair in
it's a
his
stamp of it.
office. Koenig's office chair. I mean, that is definitely a mid-century modern piece, and I would say that a lot of the Moonbase Alpha architecture, where it's like architecturally, not talking about like the desks or anything, but the walls, there are no sharp edges, there are no corners. It's all rounded.
Mm.
It's very, it's kind of like, we're gonna mid-century modern ourselves to pieces here.
Made it.
At least as much as we can afford to. Once it gets to the desks, well, it's obvious that these are like, adding machines with lights added to them.
Yeah, an Eames chair is going to cost you a pretty penny for sure.
Maybe not in 1975. Where are we? 74?
3 for production, 5 for airing.
3?
Yeah, we're just trying to
It
confuse you in
depends.
so many ways.
It depends. But I'm like, it is very reminiscent of the way the space shuttle looks, and I'm sort of looking at where that was when that was unveiled, and that says late 60s. So okay,
Yeah, Space
that's
Shuttle was given the go-ahead by the Nixon administration, if that gives you an
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah. It's like we, obviously Moonraker it's just like here's 8 space shuttles, but this is more of a inspired by that than just a straight rip of it. And I do appreciate that. I love the like stark white curviness of everything, and colorful rainbow utensils, utilities, things like that. Little colorful balls everywhere.
There was one bit of weird philosophy in here that I wonder if it's a bit anachronistic. Captain Xantor is talking about how they have to basically stop time in their suspended animation. They can't freeze themselves, right? Because you lose the flavor of life, the bit of the spirit by doing that. And I was thinking
Well,
1973, I was just listening to George Carlin talking about frozen peas and how much they suck in like 1973 on his Toledo Window Box album. Uh, but I was
yeah, now
thinking
we
like,
live in a capitalist hellscape where I can't afford fresh peas. But go
okay,
ahead.
I was just thinking, is frozen food? I mean, sometimes frozen food can actually be pretty good now.
Well, all
Not
you have
all.
to do is add things to it when you cook it. I think George Carlin was just like, I just boiled these frozen peas and I just ate them and they sucked. It's like you have to do something with them. Maybe that's also an indictment of just what culture was like at the time. It's like, what? I just heat these up, they're not good? Like, what the hell?
I guess just now the idea of freezing stuff seems more reasonable than maybe it did in
Yeah.
1973.
Well, you say maybe white people in the interim have learned how to put spices in the things when they cook them.
Just put some
Or use
MSG
some
on everything.
broth. Yeah,
MSG
but
sprinkle.
use broth. Yeah, I have MSG. I have some.
Yeah,
Don't test my MSG. I have
invented in
MSG.
Japan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Domo arigato.
I mean, frozen pizza technology after the pizza wars of the 80s, they stepped up a
Yeah,
lot, right? You can
they're
you can get
better
a
now. Yeah.
1973 frozen pizza would be inedible. So Captain Xantor's uh his explanation makes sense because of that. But if he were to get like a nice modern frozen pizza, maybe he'd change his
Well,
mind about
but
cryogenics.
this is the other thing. When I cook a frozen pizza, I put some fresh cheese on it. I put some oregano on it. I put some garlic salt on it. I put a little bit of garlic butter on it. I bet nobody in the 70s did that. They were just like, "Oh, it's the oven's done, honey.
Well, you
I'm
can't put
back from
oregano and
work."
garlic butter on Christopher
Yeah.
Lee.
But this is the thing. When he started talking about that, my assumption was like, "Oh, is that why he's so like weirdly robotic? Is because the freezing process made him like lose some of his emotions?" Which that would have been a pretty interesting angle. But like, imagine that if it was like, "Okay, Simmons, you can go to Earth, but you're going to be like this because you have to freeze yourself." But
And what if Xantor stuck around for like 3 or 4 additional days on Alpha? And by that time he's like the crazy world of Arthur Brown, and they can't wait to get rid of him.
he's like, "Oh man, yeah.
They're like,
I'm
let
glad I
us
thought
show,
out.
let us
I'm glad I
entertain
thought
you.
out." You just start screaming stuff from the Wicker Man. The
Yeah.
crops will not fail. Virgin.
Now, there's
Uh,
something he says later whenever they have the whole scare where they don't think they're going to be able to revive Helena, and then they revive her. And then he says something just really weird. It's like, your computer did not understand the human spirit. It's like, that's not
Yeah.
what computers are for, but thanks.
It was,
And
yeah, there was.
that's kind of emblematic of one of my least favorite things about Space 1999. So much has been invested into making a science fiction show, science fiction, that seems to be ready to ditch science at the earliest opportunity so it can start doing hand-wavy metaphysical crap so they can just, make up what happens instead of trying to, stick to what is possible, which, I understand with sci-fi you're going to do that. But this show really seems to go for metaphysics really quick, earliest opportunity.
Yeah,
I personally kind of like that, but I'm weird.
The second episode we've done was already Matter of Life and Death, which is basically 2001, sort of. And yeah, I was like, this is dumb. It was fun, but it was like pretty dumb immediately. Like, oh, I was on Jupiter and I turned into a thing. I turned into a different being. And now I'm here and I made parrots all die. And, it's just that's fine. I mean, I can say something's dumb and still think it's fun. Like there was a little bit of passive aggressive back and forth of like the computer doesn't understand how the human spirit isn't that great. But also my computer didn't No, it's like his computer didn't understand the human spirit not being that great, and then their computer didn't understand how much she could take, and it was sort of like a bunch of computer blaming for things that were fake, hand wavy.
I guess the dangerous bridge of all of this is if you do decide you're going to try and explain it a little better, you end up with midi-chlorians, as the Star Wars approach gave us.
Yeah, so, and you shouldn't. There was no reason for that whatsoever. That's why it's infuriating.
Yeah, we all knew the Force was the music anyway, right?
It didn't add anything, you know what I mean? It's like that never added anything to anything. Maybe it did to some TV show that I didn't watch, but no, I didn't see anybody freebase midi-chlorians and turn into a powerful warlord and die, because that would be pretty cool, but no.
You've never added midi-chlorians to your frozen pizza?
I would.
Okay, just checking.
I would. I'd sprinkle that right after I sprinkle MSG on it.
MSG midi-chlorians, feast for a king.
Yeah, MSG stands for midi-chlorian square gardens.
How many space hippies can we compare this to? We've got Star Trek's This Way to Eden,
yeah.
right? Those guys reach, of course. So we got them. I think these guys reach in this episode too. I mean, they didn't say it, but no, sure. Do we have any other notable space hippies we need to bring up?
Nothing really comes to mind, although now that you say it, it would have been hilarious if, like, Carter was standing back in the hallway just going, oh, God, these guys went past. Oh, man.
I imagine these guys smell a little better, though. They look more like, like they do like the Stevie Nicks scarves and perfume sort of thing, right?
What's the thing? If this was a Star Trek episode, there would be something like, oh, but we're all married except for every 300 years we kill our wives. Or, okay, maybe that's a dark version of it, but I feel like there would be some kind of like social twist, which there kind of isn't here. Like the only real like societal twist is they're going to go to Earth, and if Earth won't take them, they'll kill themselves, which is really weird. But I mean, it's
all of us are going to be on Alpha for a week, then we must stop wearing pants. That is our way.
Yeah.
It might have not been in the first place. Didn't they have like kind of long flowing robes? They could have been going commando for all we know.
We are trying to make it to Woodstock 99.
Yeah, no, they just missed it, didn't they? Wouldn't it have been
August if their ship was faster? But then that's the thing is they were supposed to get to the moon, but the moon was in the wrong place, right?
Oh, so you just proved they were trying to make it a Woodstock 99, which was a mistake. Exactly. It turned out in the end. Wasn't that the Woodstock?
No, it would have been cool. They would have just been like, this planet is beyond saving. And they're right.
Okay. I don't know. To me, it seemed like a reverse Heaven's Gate for some, like what they wanted to happen. Not what happened. I mean, what they wanted to happen.
I mean, that's just, they were just throwing a few things in there to make, they were trying to make it not super attractive to take the ship to Earth, which I appreciate, because a show like this, like, and we've seen it a bunch of times, like Quantum Leap, Land of the Lost, Gilligan's Island, where it's like you're constantly gonna get teased with there. This is the problem that's going to be solved. Well, they're going to make it home. It's, oh, this will be the time. Voyager's sort of like that, but at least Voyager doesn't harp on it too much. But there's always has to be some kind of little tease where it's like maybe this will be the way they get back home. And I appreciate that Koenig keeps just being like, no, we're not doing that. We're not going back to Earth. It's not happening. Because
there's that
just...
scene where they ask several people, like, if given the choice, if the computer chooses you, are you into that? And people are like, I don't think so.
Yeah, because a lot of them want to like go colonize somewhere new because that actually sounds pretty cool if you're a certain type of person.
And yeah, they already have friends on Moonbase Alpha, right? If they go back to Earth, they literally will not. They'll be just a weird, like relic.
Well,
Scotty
75
style.
years. That's tough, especially because they don't know if Earth is still there.
Yeah, their exhaust might have blown it up real good. We don't know.
And the last thing we saw was a news report where it's like, oh, the moon being gone causes a lot of problems, which is, of course, scientifically accurate. It's scientifically accurate. So that was a nice touch because surely something has been produced where the moon goes away and nothing happens. I mean, whatever, the Tick. The moon goes away. Or no, wait, it wasn't the Tick. No, Dragon Ball Z. I'm sorry. The Tick, there's just a part of Chairface Chippendale's name is in the moon. But Dragon Ball Z, they just blow up the moon. Nothing happens.
I guess the last observation I want to bring up a little bit is what I think we're going to increasingly call the Barry Morse problem, where he's like, of the leads, he's the most charismatic, but he really has little to nothing to do in most of these episodes. Like Dr. Russell can basically cover like that whole field of action.
Yes, and she also gets to make eyes at her husband too. They have fantastic chemistry because they've been married for 10 years.
Yeah. I guess I'll throw it your way, Earl, about how do you see Barry Morse's slot in this series?
I love Barry Morse.
I do too. That's why I'm like,
tell you why. He's the most realistic science officer ever in sci-fi TV because, as you're going to find out as you go through this series, they're going to ask him for some instant analysis, and his answer is always, well, John, I don't know. And I think that's a lot more likely to happen than, someone pushes some buttons on a touchscreen and, we've completely scanned the interior superstructure of their ship. And here's where the problem is. No, you're going to have some guy with or without epic sideburns just sitting there going, I don't know. And so on the one hand, it's kind of tiring hearing him say that. But on the other hand, it's terribly realistic that you're going to have a scientist who's like, I have no idea. We just ran into these people. This ship just showed up. I haven't got the foggiest as to what is going to happen with this thing that looks like a tub toy that's descending toward us.
Yeah, and it's so far with what we've watched. It's just such a kind of weird dynamic because actors great, characters great, but they seem to maybe because of that they just have trouble knowing what to do with them. And I mean, one of the reasons I haven't seen season 2 so much is because I like him. I don't want to see the episodes he's not in, right? I want to see ones he's in.
Yeah, I was bummed finding out he wasn't going to be back for season 2.
Yeah, but it's just like, well, there's not much to do with him because he doesn't know, and they're always running into new situations.
There is an episode coming down the pike that delves a lot more deeply into his relationship with Koenig. And so you have that to look forward to. And that's really kind of the source of a lot of the backstory for those of us who really like the character of Victor Bergman. But a lot of it is confined to one episode, and you just kind of extrapolate out to the rest of the series from there. It's kind of like, where did Tasha Yar have the most lines? The episode where they killed her.
Yeah, and I think he even gets the indignity of basically being possibly canon off-screen killed between seasons.
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah. So there's always a little flub there, but again, I can't. I always have trouble recalling the name Victor Bergman too. I just keep calling him Barry Morris, right? So there's that. I don't have trouble talking about Koenig or Dr. Russell or
It
Carter.
it took me a minute because, like I said, it was a little bit difficult to parse out the characters, and he was just like the guy who kept showing up, the likable science guy who kept showing up until I kept seeing his name enough to remember what the character's name is. There's not
Guy
a
who
whole lot of
looks
people.
intently at Globe in opening credits.
Yeah. Well, there's not a whole lot of characters calling each other by their names in this either. It's just like, um, not a lot, but
It's a astronaut level workplace, like you
well,
said.
it's British television, so they assume that we're smarter than we probably are, which I appreciate.
um, I've gotten through all of my random observations. If either of you guys have something you'd like to throw out on this episode.
Um, R.I.P. Simmons. I hope they don't have trouble explaining why there is a corpse on their ship when they get to Earth in 75 years.
A human corpse.
A
Yeah,
human corpse that I'm sure they could figure out who it was.
they
Well,
might
here's
have
the
some.
question. Do you think as much as the elimination of their crew member that opened up that slot on their ship was oh, whoops, did we do that? Do you think that Xantor intentionally, oh, whoops, did I forget to feed your matrix into the computer? It's almost like he knows Earth will be better off without seeing this guy intact again.
I want to believe that, but I also appreciate that it was left pretty ambiguous.
I like. I did see that idea. I liked it, but I more like the idea that Simmons himself forgot he needed to do that. Like he was in such a rush because the computer was going to choose him. They were going to be able to do this like with a checklist and do it properly, and he would have much more likely survived, right? I like to think that his full headedness got him killed, but I also do a Twilight Zone podcast, right? So it's like you want the guy's flaw to be his downfall sometimes, and not somebody's revenge trip or something.
I sort of wanted revenge, but this is the argument you can make that Koenig is the advanced. This is an advanced civilization from the perspective of the 70s. I wanted to believe that Koenig was obviously, even if Simmons was like surrendered and came back on the ship, I think Koenig would have just been like, sure, come back. And then if he won the lottery, if he didn't, things would just go back to normal because he would just be like, well, I understand you went crazy and shot people, but also you could argue that the most advanced thing is to just say, I'll be your hostage and just conveniently forget to scan him into the computer.
I mean, he did stun them with an awesome stun gun, so
that might be the most advanced thing because this guy basically spared Earth from having Simmons and Moonbase Alpha.
Yeah, everybody wins
without
except for
anything.
Simmons.
He didn't do anything really. He just it's like karma. I don't really believe in karma, but that's probably.
I mean, if that
just say karma.
I mean, if that thing's airtight, he's gonna be dead in 10 minutes. So he doesn't have to wait that long.
Despite all of his rage, he is still just a rat in a cage.
Exactly. He'll probably eat his own arm or something.
Well, I guess that brings me to asking how much of this episode is existential dread and how much of it is sci-fi fun. I guess I'll throw that to our guest first. Earl, you can go percentages or just a general feeling if you want.
After having seen it a few times, I'm really in favor of fun. However, we were talking off mic earlier about other early 70s sci-fi kind of having this same heaviness to it, like Moonbase 3 on the BBC. Over in North America, we had the Star Lost around the same time. Two shows that are they're so weighed down in existential dread. And here's the thing. I kind of like that about the first season of Space 1999, that there's this heaviness to it. I mean, sometimes just the music they open up with the first shot is just like, oh God, it's despair already, and we just started. But it's a lot of the show is about overcoming that, and overcoming whatever challenges kind of bring that heaviness to it, which sort of reminds me, Simmons planned to, what's he going to do, turn the moon around? So we're going to go back the way we came and run into all the people we've pissed off already. That's a great plan, Simmons. But the thing about it is, for the most part, it's just kind of a sense of discovery and weirdness. And so I've really got to land on, I would say, 60% fun, 40% existential dread.
I'm gonna go 90-10 because the fun is everything. The alien spaceship looks cool, but you know that Simmons is gonna do something. You know that the going back to Earth is a bad proposition. You know that Xantor is not in. You can't guarantee these trustworthy. You see someone die in the first 2 minutes. You know that they were killed by the incompetence of the crew, or the ignorance. It was decided to be ignorance. But I love Dread, so this made me really happy. For me, Dread is fun.
Okay. I was I'm going to 80-20 split.
Okay.
80 on the fun. This one, well, it's one guy basically screwing himself, isn't it? I mean, it's like Simmons is completely responsible for his own fate in like aggressive ways, right? So
he does almost kill everyone at some point,
the
or
aliens,
he's able to kill everyone.
the aliens seem pretty nice. Of course, the captain may have kind of like, oops, murdered him. That's possible. But I feel like what is dread in other episodes is kind of just scientific coldness, and this one they apply the scientific method incorrectly a few times, but that happens. That's how the scientific method works. You make your hypothesis, you test it. If it doesn't work, hopefully you did not just incinerate someone or put yourself in a coma as they did in this episode. But yeah.
oh yeah, we didn't even really talk about how Dr. Russell comes out of that almost coma and she looks like she might have brain damage after they say that she might have brain damage. That was also really stressful.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm fine.
Oh, good, because you didn't look like it. Okay.
No, but I mean,
She got a halo of gold. That was cool. Nice.
Part of the dread fun. There. Yes, it was really cool looking.
But yeah, I didn't find as much dread in this as, like I said, more like, psychedelic, not psychedelic, scientific coldness. There is plenty of psychedelic in this episode too, of course, but it's not the dreadful kind, just the colorful, Steven Tyler's microphone sort of thing, right?
Wait, what?
He's got all the scarves and stuff on his microphone. Yeah, I went with Stevie Nicks earlier. Now I'm going with Steven Tyler.
I thought it was a more sinister reference, but
oh no, I'm literally talking about his microphone at Aerosmith shows, which looks ridiculous.
Okay. Well, that's not going to last.
Looks like these guys' spacecraft. So
okay.
These guys have more plastic, glowing plastic. That's cool. So
it was
I support glowing plastic.
It was really fun how it sort of spun around, but then landed at
Oh yeah, that one landing.
They were like, it crashed.
Wonky.
It was just sort of like it just sort of spun out and then landed.
Yeah, it was at an insane angle. I was like, that can't be right.
Marionettes, baby.
Super marionettes.
The very early 70s shiny metallic Easter eggs they hand to everyone. And this is part of our funeral rites. And it's like, before that conversation is even over, Simmons is over there just like, tossing it back and forth like a baseball. It's like, dude, this is their sacred object. They are still in the room with you.
It was just great. Yeah, he is such a great, like, evil jerk bastard. I loved it.
Yeah, I don't know. How many episodes would have gotten annoying? Would he have been able to be a Dr. Smith or
you can't
or
like
Baltar?
Dr. Smith couldn't be Dr. Smith for more than one season. You know, they turned him into something else. They turned him into like robot comic relief.
And they
But,
turned
you know,
Voltar into Jesus. That was pretty cool.
I don't know what that is.
On Battlestar, the newer one, he
Yeah, I didn't
eventually
really.
becomes a messianic figure, which is kind of fun.
Okay, I didn't really see enough of that.
Okay.
That's on the list of things to watch
Yes,
before I
for
die.
sure.
Now, the
Mhm.
interesting thing about, I brought up the Big Finish audio retelling of Space 1999, which I think is on now its third box set, and there's 3 episodes per box set. They do feature Simmons more often. They do have now the one that they released about 6 months ago, I think, had Earthbound in it.
Hmm.
But they have a lot more scaffolding leading up to that, so you're ready for Simmons to get it in the neck, for one thing. But for the other thing, they also make him not quite as arch as he is in this episode. Now, he is chafing against how Koenig is running the station, but he occasionally sometimes makes the right calls for the wrong reasons, or vice versa. And so it's kind of like, okay, he's an asshole, but he's our asshole.
I
And so
appreciate it. Sorry, go ahead.
there's a lot more build up by the time you get to Earthbound. However, without spoiling anything, I should say that their version of Earthbound does not have quite the same ending. But one thing that they did note because they do bonus features in like the run out time of the CD. So a CD is like 74 minutes. So if their episode is 62 minutes, well, you have 12 minutes to talk about the making of. And, they do mention that the reason that they use Simmons a lot more is because he is a natural source of conflict. And where you have conflict, you have drama.
Yep.
And
I-
yeah, a lot of this first season conflict is just with the weirdness itself.
Well-
you don't get your mustache twirl. I mean, this guy, he twirl his mustache? I don't remember.
He
In
sort
the
of had the
episode.
goatee. I don't think he really did, but he was doing a lot of, tossing eggs in the air, and I did really appreciate when he just says, "I'm a politician. I've been a politician my whole life. I don't believe in luck," or something like that. And then as soon as Koenig walks out of the room, he just steals his thing and runs. He's just like telling him right away, he's like, "I'm going to fix this in my favor," because that's what I'm going to do.
There's another line that Simmons rattles off that I wrote down in my notes. He said, "I got to be commissioner by doing what's necessary, not what's right." It's
Mhm.
like, wait a minute, isn't the job description to stand at the intersection of both of those things as often as possible? It's like, I'm a career asshole.
Yeah, he's straight up Trump. They just predicted Trump with this.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because the Big Finish version of Earthbound, it is a 2-parter, so it's 2 hours. But part of the expansion of that is that they're kind of doing Brexit and January 6th in the same story.
Okay.
Simmons calls for a vote of no confidence in Koenig's leadership. And then, we're going to hold a vote. And Koenig is like, okay, we'll do it your way. But then Simmons is all insinuating, oh, well, they're not going to do it our way unless we make them do it. And then he stands back while various crew members act on that in their own way, while he's sitting there wringing his hands, claiming he had no idea that this kind of talk would lead to any sort of violence. I mean, it's surprisingly topical for a remake of something from 1975.
We could only hope that the people that the future of our species is this version where everybody's sort of like, I don't know, and the one asshole just kills himself by trapping himself in a glass case.
All right.
It's
like it's like
mutiny is a common thing on the high seas. Probably would be in space too.
Well, yeah, this Simmons just isn't as sharp, is he? He's impatient and petulant, basically.
Yeah.
He's not a master manipulator, as it seems like the radio version is. So
yeah, he was just telling Koenig, like, hey, you should be a leader and fix this so I win. That's basically what he was saying. Or maybe kill all of the Caledonians and put 6 of us on there, which I'm sure
He
that
was
wouldn't have
fine with
worked.
that. Yeah.
I don't think that would have worked. But
Well, they pretty much instantly shot that idea down, and I guess he could have gone about trying to kill them, but that would have been really. I mean, it's not like anything he did was very smart, so I guess he could have done that too.
I thought that was probably what was going to happen, was he was going to try to kill them and then they were going to kill him. But yeah, close enough.
I guess we'll wrap this one up for now, unless someone has a major thing. I already asked that once, but I guess I'll ask it again because we got into 5 minutes or something. So someone did.
Mm.
I wish more of the show had been like this episode. I'm not saying I want, nonstop Twilight Zone twists on everything,
I
because
kind of
after
do.
after you do that so many times, it's like, okay, you guys are just in the Twilight Zone in space.
Well, yeah,
But
Game of Thrones taught us we can't keep twisting.
exactly, it's just I wish there had been more, more like this, where there's, you have clear lines where your characters are in conflict with each other, and it's not just all of them pinned back against the wall like the universe is trying to kill us collectively.
Yeah, I love the cherry on top where Simmons gets picked at the end. They didn't have to do that. It was great.
A great, fantastic ending for sure. Um,
I thought it was going to be evil triumphs just to get him off the ship. It's like, well, yeah.
well, Earl, this is I guess early October when people are actually hearing you, but can you tell us a little bit about what you're generally up to, I suppose, with your podcast and your work?
Well, as you mentioned, I edit and do tech production on Mission Log Live, basically anything over at Roddenberry that starts with Mission Log. I'm not on the shows, but I'm putting them together. I'm the fifth Beatle. I'm going to leave it to other people to decide whether or not I'm actually George Martin. On the Sci-Fi 5 podcast, which I miss terribly, and hopefully in some alternate universe, by the time people hear this, maybe it'll be back. Maybe it'll make a comeback, a miraculous return somehow. But I was a writer, editor, and a frequent voice on Roddenberry's Sci-Fi 5 podcast, which was 5 minutes of sci-fi history every weekday, and I miss it terribly. Now, for my own home base at thelogbook.com, I do a few podcasts, but the one that most people listening to this will be interested in is called Retrogram, which picks an interesting week between 1970 and 1995, rewatches all of the genre shows from that week. So your sci-fi, fantasy, horror, superhero, spy-fi stuff, gives them a fresh watch, a fresh reassessment as to what has held up and what hasn't. And generally speaking, I do have a genuine huge amount of affection for this era of TV. Nobody sets out to make a show that sucks. People do misjudge their limitations and their expectations, and perhaps misjudge how much of an audience there is for what they're doing all the time. But, we all do that, whether it's a TV show or a stage play or a movie or a podcast. It is what makes art a uniquely human thing. And so I admire anyone who's ever just set out to put on a show. And so I try to celebrate that.
But she was a little singing, a little dancing, and sometimes it's great. I mean, I don't know if the Brady Bunch Variety Hour comes in your purview, but hey, I'll watch that all day, and it's terrible.
It doesn't, but someday I am going to cover Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park.
Nice.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never seen it, but I should. I need
You
to watch
absolutely
that.
should.
Hi Mark. I loved this episode. You could find me in Halloween Town because it's Halloween month.
Right. As for this podcast 1999 is part of a bunch of podcasts. You can support us. Throw a buck on Patreon at Podcastius, where you'll get these early. We are recording this in June, and there's already going to be these 3 episodes there if you want to time travel back and hear them then or now. Films and Filth, the Citizen Kane of podcasting. We talk about the 100 best and the 100 worst films as rated on IMDb. I think we're somewhere around 2001 right now on that podcast. Mark is there for that. Time Enough podcast does the Twilight Zone. One of the reasons we like this is because we like the Twilight Zone around here, and you can listen to that too. Okay.
Yep.
I guess I could keep video. Okay, I gotta say the video games tonight. Luke loves Pokemon
Game
for
game
Pokemon.
show.
Game show for
At the
gamers,
same
gaming
time.
games. Hyrule Field Report for Zelda. Sorry, just spitting that out because my plug's getting way too long. Okay.
Well, we make too many podcasts.
Yep.
And when I say
Hey.
we, I mean you. You make too many podcasts.
I don't make the video game ones. Come
And
on.
Luke, both of you make too many
Yes.
podcasts.
Yes. Okay. Anyway, be careful where you sleep tonight.
Don't fall asleep in a glass case inside a spaceship.
That's the message of this episode.
I love that. He just took a little nap. And it's like, oh, I feel much better.
That's all he needed.
How are
a
you
nap.
guys?
That's
That
all
could
he
have been
needed.
2
It's only an hour
hours.
and a half later.
I'm gonna.
I was like, I forgot to mention in the podcast. I was like, I kind of wanted them to just pretend that they were Earth. Yeah, it's Earth. We'll see you in a little bit. That's not what the show is like at all.
Kidding, changing his voice a little bit. Hello, this is Commander Koenig.
Yes, this
I don't
is
even
Commander.
respond to him at all. I don't even know how to take that. I mean, someone should have, Sandra or someone should have said, oh, he's getting outside of our signal range. We can't respond. But instead, they're just all like, oh, well, that sucks for him.
Don't answer that call.
Yeah, they're the evolved space people where they're like, man, yeah, that's rough. We were gonna just give him a chance to come back.
Out of
and
airlock
be
where he died
fine.
quickly.
Yeah, my first thought, I guess I'm just a petty bastard. I was like, yeah, I'd be like, yes, it's your grandson, Ralph Simmons. Please come. Yes, just get ready to come to Earth. You're almost here. Just a little bit longer. But yeah, not this show. Maybe like
Your call is very important to us, but all of our Earth people are busy.
yeah, maybe the Orville would do that or something. But no,
Press
not.
2 for Espanol.
Yeah. Your call will be answered in approximately 75 minutes.
Years.
No, I mean he'd die in 75 minutes. Give him the amount of time that he would die, and then just like pretend he's on hold the whole time.
I mean, assuming that's a sealed environment, just thrashing around in there used up a hell of a lot of his oxygen.
He's gone in 5. Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
stop my recording.